Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome and thank you for coming to the Nissan External Shareholder meeting today. I am President for Nissan Motor Company. In accordance with the Articles of Incorporation of the company, I will preside over the general meeting today. And please understand that this general meeting is wholly broadcasted through the internet in order to give access to those people who are not able to join us today. Now I hereby declare the opening of this extraordinary general meeting of shareholders of Nissan Motor Company Limited. There is no absentees today. I hereby submit as the matters to be dealt with at this meeting the proposed items as stated in the notice of the convocation. Please have your reference to the notice. I have a few requests in order to make this general meeting run smoothly. Your cooperation would be highly appreciated. I will notify you when we reach question and answer session, so please reserve any questions, opinions, and remarks, including the motion for that session. And please follow the instruction given by the President, the Chairman of the meeting, that is myself. In case a foreign director or officer gives an answer or explanation, it will be simultaneously interpreted into Japanese. Although the safety of this hall was confirmed before this meeting, in case of any emergency, information will be provided by designated staff members. To begin, I now ask Tagawa-san, Corporate Vice President, to report on the number of voting rights held by the shareholders present today. Allow me to make a report as follows. As of February 20th, 2019, there were a total of 545,668 shareholders and 4,220,715,112 outstanding shares. Out of these shareholders, having voting rights, and those shareholders hold a total of 16,275,755, so 39% of the total number of rights holders. There are a total of 1,832 shareholders in attendance today, which hold 18,555,118 units of voting rights. The combined total comes to 186,189 shareholders having 34,830,837 units. Thank you, Tagawa-san. The shareholders present today hold the number of voting rights as reported by Tagawa-san. Accordingly, I now declare that the quorum necessary to deliberate on the full agenda of this general meeting has been met. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before the deliberation of proposed items, I would like to explain the process of holding this extraordinary general shareholders meeting and our future tasks. So let me speak.
よろしくお願いします。改めまして。
To begin, on behalf of the company, allow me to express my sincere regret for any concern the recent events may have caused.
申し訳ございません。申し訳ございません。ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
昨年のですね、
It has been over 4 months since the event in November. Today, Nissan has reached a significant moment with you, our shareholders, joining us. We have experienced unprecedented executive misconduct. Given the long history of this company, it is very hard to come to terms with. And it has been 4 months since then. This meeting is a critical forum for us to draw a line under the misconduct and take a step forward in terms of corporate governance. Thank you for taking the time to join the meeting today. Let me give you some report about the executive misconduct. There may be information that you are aware of. In mid-October last year, I received a report from a statutory auditor regarding misconduct by then Chairman Carlos Ghosn. Following an internal whistleblower report, the investigations by the internal auditors were already underway and the report to the prosecutors had already been made. Immediately after I received the report, an internal investigation team was newly set up, and as a company, we began a detailed investigation. As a result of that investigation, the following 3 large groupings of misconduct were revealed. Although I am unable to provide all the details due to the judicial proceedings, I will do my best within the restrictions. First, over an 8-year period, Ghosn intentionally reported compensation amounts in the company's annual securities reports that were less than the actual amounts. Specifically, despite the fact that for the consolidated financial years from April 2010 to March 2018, Ghosn's total new remuneration was 17,030 billion yen. It was reported as 7,891 billion yen in the submitted annual securities reports. Second, Ghosn falsified purposes of the company's investment funds for his own benefit. The investigation revealed that the proposal was made at our executive committee to establish a subsidiary focused on investment in new technology startups, when actually the investment funds for that company were used for different purposes, such as purchasing and renovating houses for Ghosn. The investigation has revealed that this was done through a number of overseas shell companies in order to make it difficult for auditors to detect. Third, Ghosn also used the company's funds for private purposes. For example, the company paid Ghosn's sister a total of $755,000 in consulting fees between the years 2003 and 2016, but no evidence has been found to suggest that any services were provided. Concerted efforts were made to conceal and disguise the misconduct. The investigation also revealed that Greg Kelly was deeply involved in planning the misconduct. It was obvious that the serious misconduct was a breach of corporate ethics and that discharge was required. At an extraordinary board of directors meeting on November 22nd, a proposal to discharge immediately Ghosn as chairman and representative director, and Kelly as representative director, was unanimously approved. For some of the misconduct uncovered by the investigation, the prosecutors indicted Ghosn on December 10 on charges of violating the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act for misstatements in annual securities reports, and Kelly on December 10 on the same charges. Both were additionally indicted on January 11 on the violation of the same act. Nissan itself was also indicted on December 10 and also January 11 on suspicion of violating the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act for misstatements in annual securities reports. Nissan was indicted. The indictment of the company is extremely regrettable, and we take the situation very seriously. I would like to express my deepest regrets to our shareholders assembled here today. The final decision on the criminal charges will be left to the judicial system. However, the true essence of the issue is removal on the grounds of breach of corporate ethics. Even one instance of this misconduct would lead to dismissal of any executive or employee. Naturally, the Nissan board of directors decided that the person responsible for such conduct could not be allowed to remain at the top of the company. Also, on January 11, as you know, the ex-chairman was indicted on the charge of aggravated breach of trust for such acts as transferring unsecured liabilities for 1,850,000,000 yen of paper losses from a personal currency coupon swap contract to Nissan. In this case, Nissan is a victim. Once the discovery was made, Nissan filed a criminal complaint. In addition, an investigation into Nissan Mitsubishi BV, NMBV, a joint venture initially intended for exploring alliance synergy opportunities between the two companies, revealed misconduct. An investigation into Renault Nissan BV, RNBV, is also ongoing. Following this, Renault's board has also made top management changes. On January 24 this year, Renault's board appointed Jean-Dominique Senard as chairman and Thierry Belloré as CEO. Taking these changes into account, we decided to hold an extraordinary meeting of shareholders today to discharge directors Gon and Kelly and appoint Mr. Senard, a Renault nominee, as director. Now, as you must know, just last week on April 4, Gon, while out on bail, was again arrested for aggravated breach of trust, a violation of the Companies Act. We are not able to comment on the details as the investigation is ongoing, but this is the fourth time he has been arrested. Renault is also carrying out an internal investigation, and it has been reported in the media that suspected inappropriate payments have been found and that a report has been made to the French prosecutors. That was what happened so far. I was extremely shocked when I learned of the misconduct. It was committed by someone who had been leading Nissan for about 20 years. What happened was extremely regrettable. It was obvious that making such findings public would hurt the Nissan brand and the company's credibility. However, I decided that my responsibility to stakeholders as a member of management and an executive was not to ignore the misconduct but to handle it properly and dedicate all my energies to what needs to be done for the future of the company. Though efforts were made to conceal and/or disguise the misconduct. Nissan's previous and current top management takes the fact that it went unnoticed for a long time very seriously. Since I was informed of the matter, I have been asking myself over and over why the organization failed to stop the misconduct. The reasons, I believe, were concentration of power in the hands of a single individual for a long time. And to be specific, an organization that enabled an individual to conceal wrongdoings. And a major problem of corporate governance that enabled the misconduct. There are two parts to top management's responsibility. As I have been saying, one is responsibility for what has happened in the past. The entire top management of Nissan who has been involved in running the company over the past few years takes this very seriously and is in a state of soul searching. The second is responsibility for the future. We must reform corporate governance, stabilize our operations, return Nissan to the path of growth as soon as possible, and prepare to hand the company over to the next generation. I intend to demonstrate my responsibility by dedicating all my energies to what needs to be done. This is the second part of the responsibility. Let me overview the challenges that Nissan must address. The first challenge is restoration of corporate governance. On December 17 last year, Nissan's board approved the establishment of the Special Committee for Improving Governance. The committee consisted of 7 members, 3 Nissan independent outside directors and 4 independent third parties. It was established to receive recommendations regarding governance, management, and improved governance of director compensation from independent third parties. After thorough discussions, the committee made recommendations to our board of directors on March 27. The special committee proposed 38 recommendations. 3 would require major changes to our organization, transition to a company with 3 statutory committees, have a majority of the directors be independent outside directors, and the chair of the board of directors and each of the committees shall be an independent outside director. The special committee indicated that the misconduct was a case of typical management misconduct for personal gain. And the committee also stated that the key factor enabling this misconduct was a concentration of power under one person. At Nissan, this person had the power to shuffle personnel, including the CEO, directors, corporate officers, and also to determine their compensation. The structure enabled him to do things secretly with the support of a limited number of close aides. We have to admit that there was a significant problem with our corporate governance. This situation revealed misconduct violating corporate ethics and brought to the surface the risk of depending on a single individual to run the company. Nissan takes the special committee's March 27 recommendations very seriously. The board met on March 29 and decided to advance preparations to transition to a company with 3 statutory committees. Nissan is committed to building an action plan for better corporate governance and to swiftly carrying out reform at the top management level to prevent recurrence of misconduct. The second challenge is stabilization of operations. We are going through something unprecedented. As it regards the former chairman who was at the top of the company for a long time, there is understandable disturbance on various levels in the company. This is something we can't really avoid, and there is a real sense that it is having a large effect on our top management and work in both direct and indirect ways. Also, with our new governance efforts, even if the direction is understood, I think there are real questions and anxieties about how connections with the board and the executive committee could change. Against such backdrop, market competition and technological innovation are progressing. It won't wait for us, not even for a single day. In order to minimize the effect the disturbance could have on our results, we will continue to communicate in a concentrated manner with our employees, with top management working closely together. The special committee highlighted a corporate culture within which no one would voice objections. There was an environment in which executives and employees would be penalized for arguing back, expressing doubt, or refusing to follow an instruction. Out of fear, they were unable to say no or report an issue. As a result, well, this is a situation that we have to take very seriously. And as a result of this long-standing situation, the organization ended up with a number of operational distortions that need to be modified or eliminated because they led to an undermining of profitability. For example, it was hard to people to raise doubts about constant repercussions resulting from overly stretched numerical objectives in pursuit of short-term benefits and efficiency in our operations. I recognize that a number of distortions have built up over many years. There were certain ways of doing things that over the course of the years became practices. And I feel this is a cross-cultural reformation that the special committee highlighted. And I feel a complete reformation is required along with the revision of the Nissan Way. And the Nissan Way is, this is Nissan's principle, attitude, and action. This is Nissan's guidance. Since we faced the final inspection issue, we have been revising the Nissan Way, and we are having much discussion on this within the company. The third challenge is to make sure that alliance is not destabilized because of this event. Stabilization of the alliance and its further development on the right path is the third challenge. Renault, Mitsubishi Motors, and Nissan all recognize the benefits and potential of the alliance. All the partners are counting on its benefits more than ever as we face large transformations in the auto industry. Since the event occurred 3 months later, on March 12th, Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi Motors agreed to create the Alliance Operating Board The board will be composed of 4 principal members: Renault Chairman Snar and CEO Bolloré, Mitsubishi Motors CEO Masuko, and myself. The operating decisions taken by this board will be consensus-based, furthering the alliance win-win-win approach that will result in enhancing the performance of the 3 companies. This structure ensures discussion among partners on an equal footing. We will launch alliance projects, thoroughly examine them, and make swift decisions. We are going to make sure that every project is a win for Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi Motors. Promoting and expanding alliance efforts is the basic assumption. Nissan will also take part in accelerating it. On your approval, Mr. Snar will be appointed as a director of Nissan. Let me speak about him now. He has been in prominent positions including CFO of French aluminum conglomerate Pecny and CFO of Michelin, a leading tire manufacturer. After serving as the CEO of the Michelin Group, Mr. Snar was appointed as the chairman of Renault in January. He is known as an influential business leader in the French business community. We would very much like the seasoned and highly experienced business leader to join our board, take part in the upcoming discussions on Nissan's new governance structure, and contribute to the company's growth and development in addition to his involvement in the alliance. Once again, Nissan expresses its deepest regret for any concern caused by the misconduct to our shareholders and all other stakeholders. As I said, our mission is not to ignore the issues but to address them and immediately pave the way for Nissan to deliver greater value going forward. I am strongly determined to carry out swift reform in all the areas that are necessary. Your kind understanding and continued support are greatly appreciated.
私からですね、冒頭
That is all as my initial remarks. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Now, let me review with you the items to be resolved today. First item. I'd like to present the discharge of Director Carlos Ghosn. With respect to Carlos Ghosn, an internal investigation has uncovered the following serious misconduct directed by him. The company resolved to remove his representative rights and position of chairman on November 22, 2018. 1. The misconduct of recording compensation amounts in the annual securities report that were less than actual in order to reduce the amount of his compensation to be disclosed over many years. 2. The misconduct of expending our company's investment capital for his personal use under false pretense. 3. Other misconduct, such as expending our company's expenses for personal use. In such a situation, the company has judged it is appropriate to discharge him from director of the company. Matters relevant to this item are stated on page 4 in the notice of convocation. Second item, I'd like to present the discharge of Director Greg Kelly. With respect to Greg Kelly, as a result of an internal investigation, he has been determined to be the mastermind of this serious misconduct mentioned above. Together with Carlos Ghosn, the company resolved to remove his representative rights on November 22nd, 2018. In such a situation, the company has judged it is appropriate to discharge him from a director of the company. Matters relevant to this item are stated on page 4 in the notice of convocation. Third item, last item, I'd like to present upon the approval of number 1 item, the election of Mr. Jean-Dominique Snow as a director on the condition that item 1 is approved. When the item 1 discharge of Director Carlos Ghosn is approved as originally proposed, he will be discharged from director of the company at the time of resolution. Accordingly, on the condition that item 1 is approved as originally proposed, it is proposed that Mr. Jean-Dominique Snow be elected as substitute for Carlos Ghosn. His term will expire as of the closing of the 2019 general meeting of shareholders. The candidate and brief records of his careers are provided on page 4 and 5 of the notice of convocation. These are all the items to be resolved today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to receive your questions, opinions, and remarks, including the motion. In order to smoothly facilitate the question and answer session, I have a few requests. I will nominate questioners in order of the ticket number, so that as many shareholders as possible can ask questions. The number of questions and length of time allotted to each shareholder will be limited to 2 questions to be asked within 3 minutes. I need your cooperation. Your cooperation will be appreciated. Questioners are requested to use the microphone in the center of the floor so that everyone can hear. Make sure that you use the microphone. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, this meeting is broadcast through the internet. So please state your attendance number before asking your question, and please try to be concise to the extent possible so that we can address as many shareholder questions as possible. When the proposed items have been fully deliberated, the question and answer session may be closed, even though not all the persons who hold the tickets have asked the questions. Now, I will proceed to the question.
まずですね、それでは先ほど申し上げた
As I said earlier, ticket number 1. Please state your attendance number and then ask your question. Ticket number 1. Please state your attendance number and then ask your question. Thank you very much.
はい、お願いします。
Yes, please go ahead. Attendance number 971. 971. 20 years ago, under the leadership of Mr. Ghosn, until today, Japanese market, which is your home market, is underplayed. At least that's my impression. Since Mr. Ghosn was appointed, I thought we can't help it. But after Nissan grew stronger, even up till today, it seems like Japanese market is neglected. Mr. Saikawa, what's your thought on this matter? And under the new leadership, what kind of strategy do you have on the Japanese market? That's my question. Thank you very much.
ございます。
Thank you for your question. What you raised. From outside viewpoint, I believe what you're saying is a natural question. Japanese market is where the competition is intensifying. It's a very difficult and challenging market, and the customers are very demanding. Therefore, in that sense, Nissan should take the market seriously and work hard. Otherwise, we are unable to gain support of the customers in the Japanese market. But as you said, at the time, 20 years ago, when Mr. Gon assumed leadership, we look at the global market and decided on the investments in products. And in this process, we tended to prioritize big markets or growing markets. That's how we prioritize the investment. And this is what we have to admit. And as a result, investment in products in Japan, introduction of new products in the Japanese market was a bit vacant, and I have to admit this. It became vacant. That's what I have to admit. And against such backdrop, under Mr. Gon's leadership, ex-chairman's leadership, we had a midterm plan called Nissan Power 88. And in Nissan Power 88, 88 is part of the name of the midterm plan. So emerging markets or compact cars in emerging markets, investments in these areas were the priorities. And as a consequence, investments in Japan became a bit weak. And Japanese team did a very good job. And when we introduced new cars in this market, we ensured effective marketing. And as a result, electrification, mainly around electrification and autonomous driving, the Japanese team packaged these two aspects to Nissan Intelligent Mobility. And under Nissan Intelligent Mobility, we introduced new products. And this effort has been appreciated by the Japanese market. And this is supporting the core business of Nissan as of today. So the question is, what kind of strategy we have in Japan? Introduction of products in Japan. Last month, in fact, long-awaited K car was introduced in Japan, a mini car. And going forward, electrification and autonomous driving technologies will be capitalized on, and we will actively introduce products in this market. Nissan Intelligent Mobility is what we are promoting. In one sense, Nissan of technology, this is what you know Nissan of, and this is a modern version of Nissan of technology. So on top of Nissan DNA, we have this Nissan Intelligent Mobility as a strategy. And within this framework, we will make sure we introduce good products with a successful launch and gain support of the customers. This is our strategy in our home market. This is our direction. And there is another thing that I would like to tell you. Irrespective of the size of the market, as a result of the appreciation of the Japanese customers, our pillar in the global business is Japan, and the big market, which is China and US. These are the three major pillars supporting our business. So we renew this awareness within the company, and in order to communicate this throughout the company, I am doing my effort. And we have largely increased the importance on Japan market. That's all. Thank you very much.
それではですね。
Now let me proceed to the next question. Ticket number 2. Person holding ticket number 2. Attendance number 5401. I have only one question. What is my question? In the proposed items, Director Gon's successor was mentioned. It is mentioned. However, the successor to Greg Kelly selection is not included in the proposed items. According to the media report, at the general shareholders meeting, that successor would be proposed. But my question is this: how come that you are not proposing the successor to Kelly in this general meeting, extraordinary general meeting? In short, directors become directors because they are necessary. And Director Kelly is no longer the director as of November, and 6 months have elapsed, and business goes on. You are working on his behalf. I think at this extraordinary shareholders meeting, successor to Kelly must be selected. That has to be the proposed item. So how come this selection is not included in the proposed items? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. The import of your question, the salient point, is well understood by me. One thing is this. Former chairman gone. In relation to Nissan and Runo, he was nominated by Runo. So in that sense, the new Runo system is now being created, and the conditions are ripe for doing so. And I still believe so. Against that, on the Nissan side, the new director selection, if we want to select a new director, as far as we're concerned, what will be the criteria for the selection? Who are the appropriate people to be selected? Those are the points that has to be reviewed by Nissan side. The special committee for improving governance has come up with a recommendation. Based upon their recommendations, there are things that we have to consider in selection of the candidates. These are the things that we have to digest, and we have to look into in great detail, and then we will propose. During this time, we will have to have the vacant position for the for Mr. Kelly. So at the regular session of the shareholders general meeting, it's going to be the new process. We are in preparation for that, and upon the completion of the preparation, we would like to propose to you. So that is why we have not included that in the proposed items. Thank you.
Now, I would like to move on to the person who is holding ticket number 3. Ticket number 3. Yes, attendance number 1552. As the chair said, you gave us the details of what happened. Mr. Gon and Mr. Gelly are charged for the aggravated breach of trust, and this is serious. But I doubt if only these two gentlemen allowed this to happen. What is the current top management's responsibility? You have the serious societal and moral responsibility. I'm talking about current top management. And as a result, Nissan is losing its place in the society, and there's a big impact of the business world and the society as a whole. Your colleagues helped restore Nissan, and about 20,000 people who are the colleagues who used to be working in Nissan lost their job. Do you remember their faces, in fact? So, you, top management, what is your responsibility here? The current top management should assume responsibility and resign once and for all. This is my recommendation. Thank you.
はい。はい、今のですね、今のご発言、ご意見として
Is that your opinion?
先ほどですね、申し上げたと。
As I mentioned earlier, I never say that we don't have any responsibility. We take this responsibility very seriously. In the past 20 years, as you're right, it has been in the past 20 years. And when we learned of this event, we were shocked, as I said. What we have been doing for 20 years with your support, what was the meaning behind it? That's what I question myself about. What we have built up together with all of you, with your support and cooperation, what we have been building over the years. And there are a lot of things that are becoming assets for the Nissan for the future. And these are the assets that we need to build on for the future. At the same time, the governance structure allowed this misconduct to happen, and we need to reform it. Yes. As I said, as top management, what should we feel and what should we assume as responsibility? There are two aspects to the responsibility. One is the responsibility of what have happened in the past, and we take this responsibility very seriously. Not only myself, but everyone else agrees. And the other aspect is the responsibility obligation towards the present and the future of the company. As I said, today I would like to concentrate on the present and the future of Nissan. The board and executive committee members are dedicating efforts for the present and future of Nissan. One is to minimize the impact on the organization from this misconduct and stabilize the relationship with Renault and ensure effective governance for the future. These are the three challenges. So I would like to ask for your support, as well as Mr. Sinar, who is now heading Renault, and the rest of Renault. We are doing one by one. Frankly speaking, for 20 years, there's a big distortion that has been built over after 20 years, and we cannot eliminate or correct them in over one night. And we are still in the middle of the road. We need to fulfill this task first and be ready to move on to the next step or hand over the baton. And then I would like to consult with you about what I will do about myself. Thank you.
As was mentioned, as the questioner said, I know that there are a variety of views present out in the world, and I am aware of them, and I appreciate those views. But after all, when I consider the stability of the company's business, that has to be the top priority. That is the area where we must exert our efforts. Alliance, as well as our countermeasures regarding this incident, we are making strides, especially the management, including myself, top management, has to work so that we don't propagate any further shocks within the company. So there are big loads that we must carry, and please do understand, and we can ride over this difficult situation. We want to do so, and that will dictate the future of Nissan. So absolutely, this is the things that we have to do. So first of all, we must prioritize and make efforts in this regard. I earnestly solicit your understanding. Thank you.
Now moving on to the next question. Ticket number 4. Ticket number 4. Yes. Attendant number is 1924. 1924. The current board members, among the current board members, there are people who are sent from Renault. This is a question for people who are coming from Renault. May I? Yes, go ahead. What happened in November, and since then, a lot of things were reported by the media. And not as a shareholder, but as one citizen of Japan, I don't know how to put it, but I feel embarrassed or frustrated. Probably there are a lot of people around me who agree with this. For example, in France, assumed innocence is what people are talking about. Media reports are talking about assumed innocence, presumed innocence. But for example, shifting the personal losses of Forex swap to Nissan, but put it back into his own account. That is why he is not guilty. That's what the suspect is saying. But if you steal something from someone else and you give back what you have stolen and you say you are not guilty, and it's the same logic here. I mean, for a Japanese citizen or Japanese national, it's unacceptable. So I would like to ask this question to a current board member sent by Renault. with regards to this series of what happened, what's your opinion? What's your personal insight? That's all.
それではですね、
Yes. Among these people here, Renault nominee, who is a director of Nissan. There are two of them, and I would like to ask Mr. Duzan to answer the question. But before he answers, let me mention one thing, including Mr. Duzan, the resolution at the board, we unanimously approved the discharge. That's all. Thank you. Mr. Duzan, it's yours.
Yes, I've been proposed to the board by Renault, but I am working for Nissan and for the best interest of Nissan. Like everybody else, I feel extremely bad about the present situation. I've been just as surprised as everybody about it, and we are doing soul searching, as Sakawa-san says. As regards the question about culpability of Mr. Ghosn, I just voted, like everybody else, that he was not able to remain chairman of Nissan, given the information we had. The only thing about presumed innocence that we comply with in Europe, and I think also in Japan, is that culpability is decided by the judge, not by us. But apart from that, we think he should be removed from the board, and I will obviously be in favor of him being removed from the board, as I was from the very beginning, from November 2018.
Thank you. So that was a valuable opinion expressed by our shareholder. Thank you very much. We received your opinion and we accepted it. Okay, ticket number 5. Ticket number 5, please. Yes, 0174. The Special Committee on Improving Governance, and I have a question about the recommendation. Outside independent directors should be the majority of the board, it says. Specifically, what kind of people will be qualified as an independent outside director? That's my first part of question. And the new director candidate, Mr. Sanar, if you are there, Mr. Sanar, as you are appointed as director, what's your goal and expectation? These are my two parts of questions.
はい、ですね、まず
With regards to first part of your question, let me share with you what I have in mind or my expectation. But in terms of procedure, the newly set up Provisional Nomination and Compensation Advisory Council is holding a discussion on this matter. So with regards to this matter, I would like to ask the chair, Ms. Ihara, to comment on it. And I myself feel that in many aspects, the person with many insights or knowledge, whether it's a business administration or background, I expect people with expertise, knowledge, diverse background to take part in our board. That's my personal expectation. And now I would like to ask Ihara-san to talk about what she has in her mind. Thank you for attending this extraordinary general meeting of the shareholders. I, Ihara, would like to respond to this question. Earlier, as Mr. Saikawa said, Provisionally Nomination Compensation Advisory Council was established. And this advisory council is holding a discussion on the director candidate and the director's compensation. It's a voluntary committee. Let me give you further explanation about this advisory council. It consists of Mr. Duzan, who's here, as well as Mr. Toyoda and myself. And these three independent external directors are the advisory council. Besides these, we have gathered institutional investors, ex-businessmen, seasoned international advisors. 3 of them are providing advice to the advisory council. And we will be screening the director candidates to be proposed at the coming shareholders meeting. Advisory council, we received the recommendation from the Special Committee on Improving Governance on March 27th, and we respect this recommendation. And in order to swiftly transition to the company with 3 statutory committees, we have set up this Provisional Nomination and Compensation Advisory Council. Since 1st of April, Provisional Nomination and Compensation Advisory Council have been gathering, and from relevant consulting companies, we received nearly 100 names proposed by the relevant consulting firms around the world. We are going to ensure that the selection process is fair. And at the Special Committee for Improving Governance, we held discussion who will be qualified as an independent outside directors, and we spent a lot of time on this matter. And in the report of Special Committee for Improving Governance said this, as Mr. Saikawa said earlier, the insight and the experience as a business management and know-how about monozukuri of auto industry or auditing or accounting or Japanese companies acts. These are some of the expertise that we identified as a requirement to be an independent external director. And Nissan is an international company, and in order for Nissan to further develop itself, it's appropriate to gather these people with diverse insight and diversity in terms of gender and culture to join. Last but not least, in order to ensure, we would like to build a board with a top-level corporate governance, and to this end, we are making sure that the selection process is fair. I would like to ask for your continued support. Thank you very much. As Ihara-san mentioned, in a very short period of time, we have to do this, and this is a big task. But the team is working very hard, and Nissan is providing support as much as possible to make it a reality. And you asked about Mr. Sinar. In fact, after we resolve all the items, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Sinar, and I would like you to kindly wait until then. We will have an opportunity at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will proceed to next person. Ticket number 6. Please proceed to your question. Thank you. 1676 is the attendance number. President Saikawa explained. Mr. Gon's misconduct, it was very skillful, and it took time to uncover the incidents and misconduct. That's what you said. But from the year 2003 to the sister of Mr. Gon, money flew. Money went to his sister. And of course, there has to be a work to be paid for. But at that time, any funds flow or actual business, were you not aware of any business? 2003, it was 15 years ago. It happened 15 years ago. And during this long time, company was unaware of that funds flow as well as the existence or non-existence of the business to be paid for. Was company aware of it? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Now, what you said is that from the year 2003, what I said is that the consultancy fee that you are asking about, Actually, as I said earlier on, the money transfer, in one way, it was done amongst the limited number of people. It was carried out involving a very small number of people, and it was executed by a limited number of people. It is a fact. In addition to that, I don't know how to put it. The audit and investigation were not covering that particular area of activities. It was constructed in that way. That was why it took so much time to uncover this incident. It was not easily detectable. That is something that we have to admit seriously, honestly. And one person had the concentration of power, and it continued for so many years. If you have a leadership structure like that, this kind of incidents easily happens. I think it's a great lesson that we can learn from this, from what happened. More than this, what happened in the past, I can't explain to you with the sense of reality. It's very difficult for me to do that. But as a matter of fact, as a person who was already in the company, I could say that from that, well, if I look back at what happened, what could happen in the past, in concrete terms, to detect it, to discover it, to find it was very difficult. That's the actual feeling. That kind of misconduct could happen within the company, and you can be doubtful about that. Normally, you don't have a sense of doubt about that in the company of what could happen. But it did happen, even if in that case, not only limited to this case, but as a matter of fact, I'm not making any excuse, but it was very difficult to find it, to discover it. Once it became so opaque, and I think that really says about the reality. I know that I'm not convincing, I'm not giving you a convincing explanation, but this is the actual feeling that we have regarding this particular matter. Did I answer your question? I know that you are not satisfied, and I know that this is not good, as it is, but we allowed it to happen. It's a big soul-searching point that we have to go through. At that time, as I think of it, he was a great person in rebuilding Nissan. So the Special Committee on Improving Governance, Ms. Ihara mentioned, we had the corporate culture which made it very difficult to raise any objections. So that hampered a free flow of communication. That served as one of the backdrop. So I think corporate culture has to be improved and reformed. And we have to have the organizational structural improvement as well. They are the two wheels of a vehicle. At that time, I was already in the company, 2003, 2004, 2005. My position there then was completely different from present position, but even viewed from myself, I couldn't possibly imagine that such a thing could be occurring. That is the actual feeling I have. Thank you.
大変我々に改めて注意を喚起して
Thank you for the question that provoked us to pay more attention to. This is an aspect which an excuse is not allowed. And this is what we would like to work on in order to prevent recurrence in the future. And this is an important task indeed. This is my answer as a current CEO of Nissan. And at the same time, I agree with what you feel today. 2003 was when Mr. Gon has been in Nissan for 4 years. And since then, this kind of thing happened. And the organization failed to detect it. And he has been involved in this kind of thing from a long time before. And I'm really stunned and astonished. Concentrate since he, maybe there's one part that he was involved in the misconduct since there was a concentration of his authorities, but he has started this in 2003. I was one of the corporate officers at the time, and it's hard to believe he was doing these kind of things since 2003. It's a surprise, or rather, it's beyond my expectation. It's a misconduct which was beyond my expectation. Thank you.
以上です。はい。ありがとうございました。
Thank you for your question. Now, moving on to ticket number 5. Ticket number 6. Attendance number 173. Maybe this is related to the previous question. Mr. Gon, after he was on bail, he didn't give an evidence, so I have to say that we have to admit that he was committed in misconduct. So he was using companies' funds for personal benefits, whether a commission, consulting fee that you're referring. It's not the real expense of company, but company was paying for it, which means that the most important aspect of company is about taxation, because you are paying something for a fictitious item, which means that as Ichiro said, the baseball player said, paying taxes is the most important responsibility. So if you admit that there was a mistake here, immediately once you know the total amount which is covered, are you going to revise your application for tax? And Mr. Gond will be subjected to the penalty, or because Nissan has taken this loss. So in the future, are you going to claim damages to Mr. Gon? These are my 2 questions.
わかりました。
Understood. There were 2 questions here. Naturally, we would like to take necessary actions and start a appropriate procedure. One was about the taxation. Whether to claim damages. Once everything is clear and facts are clarified, and when we are ready to start the procedure, naturally we will take that we will discuss on taking the action. That's what we anticipate. But as of today, we are not ready to do that. We haven't started doing that. But when the time comes, when we are ready, we believe that we will result in claiming damages. In terms of company spending, do we have to make revisions or corrections? And financial statements, including the modification of financial statements, we are clarifying and ironing things out today. And in this process, we will figure out, with regards to expenses, should we need to pay the taxes or not. In the process of discussing the revision, we would like to identify what we have to be doing. Thank you.
はい、それで。
Yes, next person. Ticket number 6. Attendance number 2518. Mr. Gon's misconduct. Regarding the criminal culpability, of course, in the course of the judicial proceeding, it will be clarified and identified. But against the managerial ethics, he was doing something outrageous. Because of this misconduct, there was a colossal amount of using company money for his personal gain. So it is the violation of shareholders' rights and interests, and it is something that we cannot just let it go. So, to Mr. Gon, civil liability. I have two questions regarding the civil liability against Mr. Gon. First point, Mr. Gon's misconduct, the entirety of the misconduct within the company, you are in the process of a further study and review. According to the previous report, by the end of March, everything will be announced publicly. But why is it delayed about the progress report? When are you going to announce the entire picture of the misconduct? The second question. This is related with the previous question. As a result of the investigation for the pursuit of his personal liability regarding the damage, are you going to sue for the damage? Are you prepared to go to legal procedures in seeking damage regarding the amount of money that you, Mr. Gong, caused against the company? Thank you very much for your question and your opinion. Regarding the first point, legal procedures, we intend to take legal measures. I will be very clear about it. We intend to take such measures. Predicating on that assumption, we are pursuing our various activities. Another point, now then, the entire picture of the misconduct, what is going to happen regarding the total picture, to the extent possible, we'd like to announce it as soon as possible. But as a matter of fact, as you know, legal procedure is in progress, and investigation and the authorities' investigation makes progress, then there will be many more cases and incidences uncovered, and there will be many more things that we have to look into and investigate. So that is why it is a fact that we are delaying our announcement. We're sure that you will be asking such questions. So as of now, what we can convey to you as of now, there are things that we can tell you at this juncture. So I want you to listen to what we can explain about that. Regarding items, of course, they are very detailed items, but if you allow us, as of now, what we can report to you regarding those items, I would like to introduce them to you and report back to you. Now, make sure. Well, of course, we want to make it clear and public, but there are so many things that are ongoing in relation to the legal proceedings. We cannot disclose everything, so please hear me out.
実際に新しいガバナンス
The vice president in charge of building a new corporate governance will be making a presentation. And are you ready? Yes, let me make my report. Firstly, let me cover the topic of Gon's concealment of compensation. As been mentioned, on December 10 last year and January 11 this year, Gon and Kelly were indicted for violation of the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act, namely for filing false securities reports. According to the indictments, in order to underrepresent Gon's own remuneration, Gon and Kelly conspired to report a reduced amount of compensation on securities reports over an 8-year period. Although Gon's actual total remuneration from fiscal year 2010 to fiscal year 2017 was 17,030 million yen, Nissan's official financial statements reported a false total remuneration amount of 7,891 million yen. This means that Gon concealed compensation of 9,139 million yen. Since the information disclosure system took effect in Japan, requiring listed companies to disclose the compensation of board members who are paid more than 100 million yen a year, Gong falsified the company's securities reports to make it seem that he had been paid only 1 billion yen a year. He arranged his unpaid compensation of roughly 1 billion yen per year to be paid to him after he retired from the company. Other falsifications on compensation paid to Gon have been confirmed. We have confirmed falsification of Gon's share price linked incentive compensation, SAAR. Gon and Kelly falsified the company's securities reports to make it seem his share price linked incentive compensation had yet to be finalized in order to conceal about 2.7 billion yen in stock price linked bonuses. Since Nissan discontinued its executive retirement allowance system in 2007, no retirement allowances have been granted to directors or auditors without the approval of our shareholders. Although as Gon was a director at the time, he would have been eligible for consideration of an allowance, as this case seems to fall under reasons for non-payment under the bylaws. Non-payment is the direction we are considering at this time. It has been found that Gon falsified the method for calculating the amount of his potential post-retirement payout in order to increase the amount that could be paid to him by about 2.4 billion yen. There has also been financial wrongdoing by Gon through a joint venture between Nissan and Mitsubishi Motors called NMBV. This was as reported earlier. We've also confirmed misconduct regarding Kelly's executive compensation. Despite receiving more than 100 million yen in compensation, Kelly used several techniques to avoid disclosure during the 2012 to 2017 fiscal year period. Next, let me turn to the topic of personal use of the company's assets. Gon and Kelly deceived Nissan's executive committee into establishing a subsidiary which was to be focused on investment in new technology startups. And this is the Zia Capital, which was mentioned earlier. But in reality, the investment funds for the subsidiary were actually for different purposes, such as purchasing renovated houses for Gon. And the investigation revealed that the purchases were carried out in a carefully concealed manner through a number of shell companies in order to make difficult auditors to detect. Also, we found out his personal investment losses, which was shifted to Nissan. And furthermore, it has been revealed that Gon and his family members used the company's funds for private use. In addition to these examples, we found that Gon and his family members used Nissan's corporate jets and chartered jets for personal purposes, and that he used the company's funds to pay off his personal traveling expenses, clothing purchases, entertainment expenses, and more. As you can see, numerous acts of misconduct by Gon have been uncovered. Please note, however, that this is not a complete list. We know that Gon's defense team have said that we are only bringing up incidents from more than 10 years ago. However, we have confirmed that the misconduct continued until very recently. Gon has been indicted under criminal law for filing financial securities reports containing false information and violating the Companies Act, aggravated breach of trust, and Nissan has also submitted a criminal complaint against Gon for aggravated breach of trust and made a clear request to the investigators that Gon be brought to justice. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. So for the details, including the ongoing items, I'm sure there are a lot of people who want more information, but I would like to ask for your kind understanding due to judicial proceedings. As he stated earlier, this investigation uncovered incidents that happened recently. And people are asking, why did we uncover things that took a long time before? And after, as the investigation progressed, we uncover things that happened long years back. It doesn't mean that we suddenly revealed or discovered what happened in the past. Retrospectively, after the investigation progressed, we uncovered the things that happened long years ago. And frankly speaking, I'm not sure whether we see today is everything, but we would like to do our best to uncover all the things. And as you asked, when the time comes, we will take legal action. That's our assumption. Thank you very much.
それではですね、次
Now then, the next person, number 9, the questioner with the ticket number 9. Attendance number 729. Out of remote possibility, I'm asking this question. Mr. Gon and Mr. Kelly, in the criminal procedures, if they are acquitted, what do you see as the litigation risk? Both gentlemen, they were involved with the misconduct, but they are denying any involvement with the misconduct. And their ways, modus operandi is very carefully constructed. So if they are acquitted, there is a remote possibility that they will be acquitted in the legal proceeding. So the predication of the proposed items, that is misconduct, and the misconduct is not certified by the court. And then there will be the cancellation reasons for the resolution of this general shareholders meeting or nullification of the resolution. And you may be claimed for damage. That is possible, citing from past court cases and including the third-party experts' views. I'm sure that you are studying these risks and possibilities. How do you see the possibility of those risks being realized? And in the remote possibility, if risk is realized, what will be the extent of impact? What is your assessment and evaluation of the possible impact? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. Earlier on in my report, there was one word I didn't mention. I missed it. This time, the discharging of the position as well as the last time discharge, these were the confirmed cases. The cases were confirmed, and we thought that those cases were more than enough to allow us to do the discharging of the position. It is the expertise opinion of the attorneys and the experts. We confirmed the solidity of the grounds. So on this point, we don't think that we have any risks. On the other hand, if they are acquitted, whether they are going to be asked for criminal culpability, it is a situation so serious, I don't think I'm in a position to say anything lightly. But we have our judgment, and we have confirmed experts' opinions. Considering these expert opinions, as well as confirmed facts, the proposed items that we are making today, as well as the last time that we resolved to discharge him from the position of chairman, it is standing on firm ground. So even if it happens in the remote possibility, we are sure that we will prevail in the case.
Moving on to next question. But your opinion, we would like to refer to your opinion and be ready and fully prepared. Thank you for your valuable opinion. Moving on to next question, ticket number 10. Ticket number 10. Attendance number 486. I have two questions. The first question may be related to the previous question. One question is about statutory auditors. Special Committee on Improving Governance said that statutory auditors, when they are picky, Mr. Gon didn't reappoint them and they look for more people who didn't know much about Nissan, which means that existing statutory auditors are not effective at all. So under this not so effective statutory auditors, you are going to restore governance, and I'm sure you can't help it in some aspects. What are you going to do about this point? Because statutory auditors is not effective today. And next is looking at the release of extraordinary shareholders meeting. You should put a reference date in the digital online. It says it indicates the reference date, and you didn't put it in the release. Maybe you didn't indicate the reference date because you didn't want some shareholders to come. So IR, why didn't you indicate the reference date on the release?
これはですね、今のお監査役
that one, your opinion was about the existing statutory auditors. Well, I'm not sure whether I'm in the position to answer this question, but just one thing. For long years, this happened. And as some of the shareholders indicated, it started from 2003 and we failed to detect it. And against such backdrop, as I said in the background, we started to uncover this case, and this was triggered by this statutory auditors here. As a result of the activities by the statutory auditors, we started on discovery, and this resulted in what we see today. That was a trigger. So your criticism, there were things people said and there were demand about that, and that was as confirmed by the special committee, and I believe it's true. But the existing current statutory auditors fulfilled their task, and that's what I personally believe. And the question is how to evaluate it, and that's up to you to evaluate. But that what I feel is, as I mentioned, maybe it's not appropriate to ask statutory auditors to speak. Independent Director Mr. Toyoda, as a chair of Independent Directors Committee, could you state, because he was part of the Special Committee on Improving Governance?
Outside the Director, Toyoda is my name. I received a question, and 3 outside directors and 4 independent governance committee members. Indeed, 7 of us really discussed on that particular question. We conducted interviews with people. We repeated our discussion. And then we found out one thing. This particular case was quite unique. This is corporations misconduct. There are many misconducts out in the world, but in many cases, it is done misconduct for the interest of the company, but this time it is for the purpose of personal gain, personal purpose. It was very rare kind of misconduct. That is why the Mr. Saikawa is saying that it is a typical managerial misconduct. I think it is properly characterized as such. What it means is that it is related with the root cause of the situation. To Mr. Gon, personnel right, compensation rights, all rights and authorities were concentrated in the person of Mr. Gon. And together with Mr. Kelly, a special limited number of people were able to collect information, and authorities concentrated. As a result, only a limited number of people could know the situation. It was a quite opaque decision-making process which was created in the company. So in that sense, the directors also, as well as statutory auditors, as long as they are in other departments, it was extremely difficult for them to detect any occurrence of such misconducts. So as a result, the governance function did not work. It's too bad, but it was a very rare case. I heard opinions from outside attorneys, and this is such a carefully crafted modus operandi, they said. Not only the directors and the statutory auditors would be so difficult to detect any occurrence of misconduct earlier in the timing. This was the opinion of the outside experts. From that viewpoint, we compiled this recommendation. So looking into the future, such a misconduct should never be repeated. We must create a structure which will prohibit any recurrence of such a misconduct. That's the conclusion. So the outside directors would be the majority of the board, and under the chairmanship of Ihara-san, we will have the Provisional Nomination and Compensation Advisory Council. We will have a solid system in place. That is what we aim at. So I need your cooperation and assistance. Thank you. Then the questioner said, the reference date, sorry, procedurally, there is no mistake. The notice is made. Notice is made without any fail. So that was no intention at all. So we believe that we have made a proper preparation in making notice. Thank you very much for your question. Mr. Toyoda explained, as he said, this is the area where it was very difficult to handle. So everything was very difficult to detect. But there is one thing I may repeat. For many years, in the course of history, over so many years, statutory auditors raised the question. That's why we are where we are today. This is one point that I want to confirm once again. Thank you very much.
それではですね、
Next one is ticket number 11. You abstained, so ticket number 12. Ticket number 12. No, ticket number 12 will not ask a question. Ticket number 13, please. Attendance number 3359. 3359. I have two questions. Last year, when Mr. Gong was arrested and indicted, and he was discharged from chairmanship. And since then, Nissan Morin's chairmanship has been vacant. Nissan chairmanship has remained vacant. And Mr. Saikawa, earlier, you said you will be fulfilling your duties going forward as top management. And how many years down the road are you going to fill the task by, or fulfill your obligation by? And after everything is solved, when are you considering to be appointed chairman yourself? What's your thought? And the second point, as a result of a series of misconduct, Nissan share price is sluggish. And Nissan is taking actions, I understand, but Nissan share is not picking up. This is my understanding. And you said that Nissan is considering to take civil actions, but we shareholders may file a suit against Nissan. And how do you see this risk?
はい、ご質問ありがとう。
Thank you for your question. Starting with the first part of your question. The point of your question is the chairmanship remains vacant, and what are we going to do about it in the future? I think this is the key of your question. And the second one is the derivative action or shareholders' disappointment against Nissan. Starting from the second part of your questions, yes, I understand your disappointment. And what we can do as a company is to minimize any impact on our business and do our best. That's our task. I can't say more than this as of today. And that's what I'm going to dedicate my efforts in. So that's why there are three challenges that we have to address. Stabilization. This is what I would like to put efforts in. Stabilization of the operations and building new corporate governance and stabilization of the alliance and relationship with Renault. These are the three challenges that I would like to address as part of my obligations toward the shareholders. And the vacancy of the chairman's position, company's chairmanship. I said about assuming responsibility, I didn't consider about the chairmanship. I would like to focus on what we have to do now with these leaders behind me. That's what we have to focus on now. And the company's chairman, whether we will have someone in the chairmanship of the company, this will be subject to an upcoming discussion. But the current directionality is to keep the chairmanship vacant for the company while we will have someone to be appointed as chairman of the board. And this chair of the board has been recommended by the special committee should be an independent outside director who will be chairing the board. Independent outside director will assume the chairmanship of the board. And this is not the chairman of the company. It will be a chair of the board. The chair of the board will be leading the effort of the corporate governance as a top of this meeting body. Of course, this person will be joining the committee eventually. That's the assumption that we have in building governance. So chairman of the company, having chairman of the company is not what we consider today. We will be holding discussion including the articles of incorporation, but as of today, chairman of the company, restoring chairman of the company is not what we consider today. Today, at each board meeting, I am presiding over the board as a chair on behalf of a chair. But after the shareholders meeting in June, we will ask the new chair of the board, who will be an independent outside director, to chair the board. This is the corporate governance of Nissan eventually. That's our assumption today. Thank you for your question. Moving on to next question. Ticket number 14.
3544 attendance number. I have two questions. First question, it's about the factual relationship. According to Mr. Saikawa, it was well crafted, very difficult to detect a case, you said. Naturally, Mr. Saikawa and other board directors, that's the response. But there may be people who are aware of this misconduct, but were not able to communicate this to the upward into the corporate structure. Otherwise, corporate culture will not be amended. The second question is about leadership. 20 years ago, Alliance started. Mr. Gon came to Japan and a V-shaped recovery happened. I remember it very clearly. But every employees or general managers or other managerial position people or ordinary people that I'm thinking about, they were having the sense of ownership and really want to produce a better cars of Nissan. That's why the V-shaped recovery was possible. But now 20 years have passed and company has to undergo major change. It's not only Mr. Gon, but who was bad, but this time around, the officers and other managerial position people, they have to have the new state of mind. Otherwise, the same thing could be repeated. So, Mr. Saikawa, how are you going to exhibit your leadership in this regard? Thank you very much. First of all, the officers level. Of course, that was what I said. But as a matter of fact, there may have been people who are aware of the misconduct in the company. Well, that's what you said in your question. In the process of investigation, in concrete terms, such works were involved by other company members. So we have confirmed that there were some people who were involved with the misconducts. So we have confirmed that in the process of investigation. So going forward, we have to improve, we have to reform. These are the things that we shouldn't be engaged in. So these people are making efforts for the direction of improvement. I will not talk about concrete names or cases or incidences, but including those facts, we must go to the next stage. So everybody is rendering his or her cooperation to rebuild the company. That is the current situation. Now, a company must act in unison. That is the most important part. As of now, there is a company situation. That's one thing. In 1999 or 2000, at that time, everybody was aware of the company situation, what kind of situation we had in the company. But this case, it happened all abruptly, and people were taken aback. What was it? Today, as I offer my explanation to the shareholders, I was feeling that the employees must be explained as well. They don't know exactly what happened, where, and how. They must understand, and they must share in the recognition of what happened in this incident. Naturally, as of November or October, such things had never been expected, of course. So first thing is the information sharing. It's very important. So to the extent possible, I am going to work for the sharing of information with the employees. First of all, I will do that. Having done so, going forward, the business operation and management has to be rebuilt to minimize the impact, adverse impact. And as Nissan, brand and reliability, credibility must be enhanced. That has to be the emphasis point of cooperation itself. Unfortunately, until now, stability of alliance, as well as the countermeasure against the misconducts, as well as the construction of governance. These were the main tasks, all of them enormous tasks. So what you said is going to be worked, and we were not able to share our good efforts to the areas that you mentioned. I am abashed about that. So this today is a big punctuating moment. So regarding the areas you mentioned, we will be acting in unison as a company to drive the company to the future. That is going to be the major part of our energy. Unfortunately, November, December, and since then, there were limited cases where I could go to the actual plant site or fields, but people are really having their strong power of Gemba, the actual place. So together with the employees, I want to have a good amount of communication so that we can go up to the next stage of where Nissan is going forward. We will mobilize all our power and forces. So in that sense, today is a big punctuating moment for Nissan's future. So we want to go forward from this memorable day today.
それでは次
Moving on to ticket number 16. Ticket number 16. Next person, please. Yes, attendance number 727. Chairman, I have two questions. In the convocation letter for the resolution item, you said the misstatements of the annual securities and the investment misconduct expending companies' investment and misconduct such as expending companies' expenses. Accounting firms check and balance. Was it effective? Were they doing their job? And accounting firm's responsibility. Are you going to replace the accounting firm? That's my first part of the question. And the second one, the statutory auditors and the auditors in and outside Japan, were they working together effectively, including the internal audit office? How are you going to reorganize yourself to be more effective? That's my question.
はい、今のご質問
Yes, thank you for your question. Starting from the second question. Going forward, when we introduce a setup that we expect to set up, that we will transition to a company with 3 statutory committees. When this becomes a reality, audit committee will be established within the company, and under the chairman of the audit committee will be functioning as an audit. And we make sure that both management and business execution are subjected to effective check and balance. So audit function and internal audit function, these functions will be ensured. And internal authorities, we will kind of escalate this internal authorities of this internal audit function, and we are preparing to do so. And the accounting audit firm, here, as of today, we are examining and ironing things out. And we are also figuring out what should be revised. Accounting audit firms' check and balance may have been insufficient. That's your question. But this case, this recent case, I have to say, was, I don't know how to put it, but from the viewpoint of accounting audit, did they have enough material to do something from the accounting audit viewpoint? There was no problem in the eyes of accounting audit, so it may have been difficult to do something about it. In relation with the accounting audit firm, I would like to ask CFO Mr. Karube to mention about it. Mr. Karube, please.
ご質問
Thank you for your question. I am CFO of Nissan. My name is Karube. You asked about the accounting audit firm. Globally, Nissan's accounting should be audited. So Shin Nihon is whom we work with. Board of Statutory Auditors make a recommendation. And at the general meeting of the shareholders, this is discussed and resolved. So far, we are not considering to propose replacement. The way we work with the accounting audit firm is as follows. We hold regular meetings and we also issue management letters. Management letters are sent by each accounting audit firm. And this letter is gathered at the global headquarters, and we ensure PDCA cycle plan, do check and action to make sure all the concerns and problems are escalated to the global headquarters and talk to the accounting audit firm directly. And twice a year, including in outside international accounting audit firm, we gather in the global headquarters and we ask these accounting audit firm to give feedback to the finance team of Nissan. So as Saikawa-san said, although this event happened, accounting audit is functioning. Internal control is what we will largely revise and correct.
Thank you. As Mr. Karube said, when it comes to account audit, or rather than account auditing, it is a matter of internal control. I think that is more important, and that is where we are exerting our efforts. In this context, in particular, we have to prioritize is this. I will confirm the correct number with Mr. Karube, but we have subsidiaries and we have sub-subsidiaries and sub-sub-subsidiaries. So there are many layers, corporate layers, and if there are too many layers, sometimes we could not see through what is going on. Usually that is the case. So the hotbed for misconduct at this time is the related companies, existence of related companies, subsidiary, sub-subsidiary of related companies. The number thereof was a big question. So we must make our own efforts so that the auditing, accounting firms' auditing can be done more easily. We have to facilitate their auditing. We have to restructure. It is our responsibility of constructing a new structure which will enable facilitated auditing at the same level, same size of company, the other companies, if we compare ours with theirs. So including subsidiaries, we have many numbers. If it was done deliberately, maybe consequence is something that we have to bear in our mind. But going forward, we will have a sizable change so that the control and transparency would be bettered. That is our homework. So that is the response to your question. Now then, we will go to the next person with a question. Thank you. 5683 attendance number. I have two questions. In recent times, days or misconduct case, and this time around the misconduct, reliability and credibility may be coming down. So Nissan's brand capability, you said that you are going to enhance it. In concrete terms, what are you going to do to enhance and make a better appeal about the Nissan brand? And I came earlier, and then there were construction workers outside this hall. I don't know whether there were Nissan workers or OBs of Nissan. So I want more compassionate guidance to those people who already left Nissan. I thought that the considerable attitudes would be called for. I hope that their voices can be heard better so that the company as a whole can go for the improvement. So regarding those, how do you feel about it? Thank you. Now you mentioned the second point. It's a very valuable opinion that I would like to take note of. Concretely, what happened outside, I don't know. But as a matter of fact, as a previous questioner mentioned, we must respect people. We must attach great importance to people. The source of our Nissan's power is the power of the people in Gemba, the actual workplace. The technology is supported by the engineering people, the production people, and the plant people, factory people. They are the supporters of Nissan power. So they must be willing to work. We must provide an environment which will enable them to work in that way. It's very important for us to do so. This time round, the top management's misconduct. This is heavy, and this is so serious. So I too feel that this is something very important I cannot miss. So the union members or the company employees, to these people, at this juncture, we are providing as much information as possible. And going forward, the company must act in unison. And that united power must be created, actually. Otherwise, we will not be able to ride over this difficulty. That is the area we will prioritize. But that was the area in January, February, March. Did I spend enough energy in these areas? No, unfortunately, I have to admit that. So going forward, I'm determined to do so. Nowadays, days, you talked about days, and the test without any testing done by the people, unqualified people. Since 2 years ago, the completed car inspection case happened, and for many years, people worked, and in a way, they were placed in a situation where cost had to be reduced in a very severe way. That is serving as one element of the backdrop. So that is the point that once again that I will have to see to it so that the environment is provided to make employees feel that it is a good place to work. So since last fiscal year and this fiscal year, we are spending money, and in many ways, the Gemba people's work environment must be improved. So that is something that we are working on. That alone is not the sole reason, but including those concrete measures, we want to show the posture of the management to the employees so that we can create the sense of unity. Now, you talked about the brand, Nissan brand. To be very honest with you, I will say this. This case is impacted. Brand is indeed impacted. I will not say that it is not impacted. But the customers, nevertheless, are providing their support. And little by little, the salespeople are making efforts at producing good results. New model of days is going to be launched, and we are now going to make a new start. So in this context, technology and the product, the car, is a package. Nissan Intelligent Mobility is a Nissan-based technology. So with our technology, there is a good assessment by the people, and we will enjoy support from the customers. On the other hand, and that, of course, is going to be the big brand power going forward. But on the other hand, company image, corporate image, well, we are reported by media a lot. And to be very honest with you, the company, the employees, of course, the officers included, we are receiving it as a negative topic. This is the impact unavoidable. Then what are we going to do about it? One thing is this. As I reported to you concretely, in terms of governance, we are going to be complete and thorough in restructuring the governance. So we will have the new type of governance, which will be regarded as a top tier in the world of governance. So we will show to the people inside and outside Japan about the newly constructed governance structure. That's one thing. And in addition to that, Nissan is known for technology. So technology, Nissan Intelligent Mobility is based upon the Nissan's nascent DNA. So we will propagate this technology to the whole world. It's very important. We will endeavor our utmost efforts while we change our governance image. So we will do both. The rest is only the solid work, one by one solid work, actual work. And then everybody will be there to see for themselves. That is the only way for us to go. So solidly, firmly, we will go forward. I will make pledge to all of you to do so. Thank you.
それでは次の方。
Okay, next person, please. Attendance number 5303. Top management. Risk is opportunity. Please do your best, even if you don't like it. For 60 years, I have been a great fan of Nissan. And there has always been an internal conflict in Nissan. When I was a child, I knew this happened in Nissan. Inside Nissan, you should have detected problems. And maybe it's different nature of this misconduct, Mr. Gon. There was a power struggle that used to happen in Nissan. And my question is as follows. So, Saikawa-san, Shiga-san, you were right-hand man of Mr. Gon. You were close to Mr. Gon and you knew him, including his personality, and you couldn't detect his misconduct. And I think Mr. Gon is a shareholder. He had about 3 million shares. 3 billion yen worth of share is held by Mr. Gon. And is he doing something negative to Nissan because he owns a stake in Nissan? Is there any risk that you expect from this? These are my questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your question. Thank you for your valuable opinion. And a question, right-hand man. Yes, I have been working with Mr. Gon for long years. This is true. My senior member, Mr. Shiga, who is a director, I would like to ask him to comment if he has anything to say.
滋賀でございます。
This is Shiga. Thank you for your question. I personally, in Nissan, I believe, I was one of the first people to see Mr. Gon for the first time. I was there at the negotiation of alliance and I was involved in building the Nissan revival plan together with Mr. Gon. And since 2005, I was a chief operating officer. I was in the number 2 position in Nissan following Mr. Gon. And since I was a director since 2015, for 14 years, I have been a director of Nissan since 2004. So no matter how you look at it, I have been closest to Mr. Gon. I was working closely with Mr. Gon. On 19th of November, Mr. Gon was arrested and I found this out and I was shocked. I was stunned. And since that date, I have been, in order to digest this fact, it took time personally. I mean, it was hard to believe. And gradually, as time went by at the board meetings, I heard the findings of the internal investigation in details, and gradually, I had to accept it as a fact. Then, I personally looked back at myself. Why couldn't I stop this misconduct? I was in the state of soul searching. And frankly speaking, these intense efforts were made to conceal and disguise it, and that made it difficult to detect. Maybe so. However, I was questioning myself, as someone said earlier, Zia Capital, venture capital was established for the purpose of investing in new technology startups. At that time, I should have asked what is the purpose of the company and ensure a monitoring system. Why didn't I propose it or ask a question as a director? It's a hindsight, but I reflected on this. And as I reflected on myself, I was thinking about the shareholders, customers, dealers, suppliers, business partners, and employees. I totally regret the fact that this event caused a lot of concern. I felt very bad, and that continues today. I can't make any excuse. I'm in a state of soul-searching and reflection, and even today, I'm thinking, if I did that, if I have done that, that's what I'm thinking. And that's my honest feeling. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shiga. As what Mr. Shiga said, his experience and the time spent by Mr. Shiga, and the time period I spent with ex-chairman Mr. Gon, and the distance between Mr. Gon and myself may be a bit different if I compare myself with Mr. Shiga. When I heard of this report, I learned of it, I said I was extremely shocked. Then it was very difficult for me to digest it. It took time. So this is, I totally agree with Mr. Shiga. Because we were close to Mr. Gon and we worked together with Mr. Gon for long years. And from the initiation of Mr. Gon's leadership, Mr. Shiga worked with Mr. Gon, and for him, I believe the shock must have been larger in scale, and it would have been harder than me to clarify and get in terms with. As Mr. Shiga mentioned, I think many people appreciated Gon revival and Gon reform. People found it good for the company. And I agree, they were good for Nissan. And as a result, we were able to do a lot of great things. And as I said earlier, especially in the latter half, the negative legacy, or rather, there's a negative impact on the company's performance, which is visible even today in terms of business operation. If we consider these both aspects, in the latter half of the period, this negative aspects became more obvious, and gradually it came into light. So I agree with what Mr. Shiga said. So maybe we could have said, no, we should do something different. This is what I reflect upon myself. Whether I could have done it or not, well, it was a change over a long time. So retrospectively or in hindsight, that was a problem that I saw in the past. In hindsight, but at that time, it was it was very difficult to come up with this idea. After a long period of time, this progressed. It's not an excuse. I'm not trying to make an excuse. We, as part of the people who have been working with Mr. Gon, I think they all agree with my feeling. And in my position today, I need to iron things out. What should we rectify? That's one question to be answered. And the other one is to work for the future together with the power of Gemba. There are assets that we need to value that we have been building over the years. So we have to figure out what should be protected and what should be rectified. Otherwise, if we try to overhaul everything, we'll go back to Nissan of old times in late 1990s. Because we have built up all these assets with the employees, business partners, dealers, and stakeholders. It's not only done by one single leader. So we have to value the assets of the company and rectify what should be rectified. So we have to draw a line between the two. And within the company, we are holding discussion to proceed. This is one of my tasks. We will overhaul the corporate governance, but what we have built over the years as an asset should be retained. And there are things that we need to rectify. We have to figure out which should be rectified, which should be retained. So, including Mr. Shiga's feedback, we would like to clarify things. That's all from me. Thank you very much for your opinion.
それでは
Now, next person with a question. 3221. Tamura is my name. It's first time to see you, Mr. Saikawa, but under Chairman Hanawa, I've known you, Mr. Shiga. Well, this time, this is the extraordinary session. So the number one, the discharging Mr. Gon. Number two, discharging Mr. Kelly. And the number three, selection of Mr. Snar as a director. I agree wholeheartedly to all those items. Since the beginning of this meeting, many people asked their questions and presented their views. But Carlos Ghosn is too bad. Statutory auditor, whistleblowers, Mr. Saikawa, you fought him very well. Because you were there, we were able to overcome the situation. Without Mr. Saikawa, Mr. Gon would be enjoying the cruiser trip. In the world, it's very rare. In Japan, we don't have such a management person. Mr. Saikawa, you've done so well. You've stood so firm to Mr. Kelly. He threatened you to change the place and so forth. He came up with many strategic moves, but you've fought against Gon and the statutory auditors. You fought well. So number 2, number 1, number 3, I agree and I support them. Is there any problem in supporting them? So you see, Mr. Hanawa was the chairman, and he brought Gon to Ginza when headquarters was in Ginza. He looked very good, but his face looks like a thief, a robber. He appears on TV, and the faces we see, it's a con, face of a con or a thief. So against such a person, Mr. Saikawa, you've done so well. Number 1, number 2, I agree. Many of the audience will agree. But Mr. Saikawa, when it comes to governance, you've been talking about governance. Gon style governance is bad. Gon style is to be done away with. So you see, wherever hand is raised, a question can be raised. This was the first time that Mr. Gon introduced this way, like the numbered tickets. So the worst one is to submit the question beforehand in writing. That's bad. It's not a shareholders' general meeting. You have to submit a question beforehand. And only the interested items by the shareholders will be talked about. Then, so Mr. Gon's way is not respecting shareholders. 43% held by Renault. The half a million shareholders of Nissan exist, and how many of them are in the meeting? So the ordinary shareholders, like individual shareholders, must be respected. Mr. Snar looks good. From his countenance on TV, at least, he looks good-natured. But after all, Mr. Saikawa, until June, until the regular meeting of the general meeting, you should take a responsibility. Ihara-san, something good was said. There are many good people. And the corporate officers were responsible, somebody said. No, they are not to be responsible. He is too bad. I've never seen the daughter's university tuition was paid by the company, or the investment money was given to his son's company. I don't want to see his face ever again. Saikawa-san, stand in firm. Stand in firm. This is an opinion, not a question. I know. I knew that I had to be here. I came all the way from Hiroshima. I had to be here. So, dear shareholders, I hope that you like my opinion. So I will say nothing more. So Saikawa-san, going tough and standing firm, and have a good terms with the Snar-san, and be in good terms with the France. So I'm counting on you, Saikawa-san. Standing firm. I have nothing to say. Thank you very much for your invaluable opinion. I dare say nothing here. Tough and warm-hearted words of encouragement. That's what you said. I take note of your view sincerely. In fact, the setting of this general meeting, it used to be a show like shareholders meeting. We wanted to change it from the past practice. In the past, general meeting used to be something like show. We wanted to change. The person is speaking without a microphone, so there is no interpretation. Well, straightforward opinion. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you indeed. I will take your comment to my heart, and I will do my best. From November, day in and day out, I had no holidays and I've been working continuously. So to the extent possible, I will continue to do what I have been doing until now. I will pledge to you. Thank you very much. Now then, next person.
集
Attendance number 3831. Who owns the company? Who owns the company is a generally asked question, and people say that company is owned by shareholders. This seems to be a general understanding. But I personally believe that a company is owned by employees and employees' family members and local communities. That's how I interpret this. And you talk about reforming culture of Nissan. Probably within the company, when you hold a meeting, probably not many people express their opinions. Therefore, first, encourage people to express their opinions at meetings. And my question, only one question. Renault. In terms of relationship with Renault, as far as I know from the media reports, there seems to be an unequal relationship between Renault and Nissan. What are you going to do about the relationship with Renault and Nissan? These are my questions. Thank you. Who owns a company? Your opinion about who owns a company. Thank you for your valuable opinion. After this event happened, I don't know how to put it, but I was considering Nissan was equivalent to Gon's leadership. That was a perception. As Mr. Shiga mentioned earlier, for long years, Nissan was equivalent to Mr. Gon's leadership. But today is a significant milestone, I said. But when this was removed, what is Nissan? And from your perception, what is Nissan? And from my viewpoint, what should I value in Nissan? I felt this rather than thinking about it. And what came up with shareholders. Yes, shareholders. But at the same time, I thought about people on the field, people on the gemba. And then customers or people who are acting as customers. These are end users as well as people who appreciate and recognize Nissan. These are all customers. Maybe I have said it on different occasion. Since that happened, people visit dealers and many people visit Nissan showroom in Ginza. It's called Nissan Crossing. And I try to pass by this Nissan's crossing often and try to see what they are looking at. Thanks to customers, or rather, people who are seeing Nissan as a potential customer and people on the field, employees on the field, and their family members. These people are not really supporting Nissan, but rather these people are the ones who, not support or determine Nissan. These are the people who determine Nissan or characterize Nissan. Yes, this significant case happened. And once again, when I ask myself, who owns a company? Well, it's customers, employees. In order to measure up to these people's expectation, we need to do our job. That's our mission. And that's what I rediscovered through these events. So in that sense, with this recent case, I rediscovered this importance, and rather than logic or reason, I felt it. I had an acute feeling of this. I said that I will be working hard going forward, and I don't think what we are doing is sufficient. We need to. I would like to do my utmost effort to make sure it's valued. You talk about expressing opinions at the meeting. Thank you for your valuable opinion. When in my position, I would like to make sure people are expressing opinions during the meeting. I need to pay attention to this point, and I need to change the structure or scheme to this end. And relationship with Renault, you said that it's unequal. The way we work together as partners in the alliance and capital ties, these are the two aspects that you need to consider. First, Renault is the leading largest shareholder of Nissan, so we need to respect them as a largest shareholder. But when it comes to alliance operation, as we have done in the past, it has been equal and win-win. But traditionally, one single individual had the discretion to ensure this equal footing. But we established a new body called the Alliance Operating Board, and this has been agreed with Mr. Senar and Renault. Maybe I didn't elaborate it, but what's epoch-making is that the scheme ensures equality. All of the partners can express opinions, and we can agree or disagree. It's consensus-based. In the long history of the alliance, this is a big step forward. So this is truly a win-win-win partnership among the three entities, including Mitsubishi Motors. And this agreement is what we are valuing and respecting. And for the future, we would like to make efforts to maintain this situation. So in that sense, we will ensure good communication with Mr. Senar and work together. And I believe we can do it. It's feasible. I would like to ask for your continued support. Thank you.
Now, next person with a question. "5721. There was a person from Hiroshima. He sounded like making a concluding remarks, and sorry to ask a question to continue. This time round, Mr. Gon at Renault enjoyed a lot of power, even in Renault. And now the misconduct with a colossal expenditure, it happened at Nissan. Come to think of it, accounting and finance governance was lacking in Nissan compared with Renault. That is my conjecture. By way of your thinking, my first question, how come as a result, Nissan's finance and accounting allowed this to happen? And going forward, whatever a strong, outrageous top person may come, the finance and accounting department will not allow such a misconduct to happen. In order to ensure that, what can you do? These are the two questions. Well, sorry, my personal view. So my response to your question is my personal view. First of all, at Renault too, such misconduct is reported. Nissan had such misconduct as well. So now it has been covered by our investigation as well as the authorities' investigation, and Renault would have cases, but I don't know whether there are differences between our case and Renault's case. I can't make any categorical conclusion. Rather than finance and accounting, it's the governance structure. It's it's all up to governance structure. There was a big difference between Renault and Nissan in terms of governance structure. Well, in Japan, in the case of Renault, the board of directors, there was only one CEO from the executive branch, and the rest no executive officers, including outside directors. The board was very open. The execution side only had one person. And then the audit committee was there, and the nomination and compensation committee was there. So in terms of structure, governance was functioning in the case of Renault. Viewed from myself, in that context, even in Renault, misconduct did happen. So it was a surprise to me. So he did to that extent. So that was my honest reaction. So as against that, in the case of Nissan's unique governance, maybe, it all depended upon the personal, individual sense of ethic. You can't deny that. Was that existence in finance and accounting? No, rather than finance and accounting, I would say that the former chairman's surrounding organization, CEO office was one case in point, or secretariat department, secretarial office was one case. So finance and accounting people found it very difficult to do anything about it because of this structure. So organizationally, we have caused some change to that, and the CEO office was de facto disassembled. So it's since after July, we are going to have a clean slate in terms of organization. Now, some more words about governance. Whoever comes will governance resist the outrageous conduct by any leader, outrageous person, or structure itself cannot be the response. But unless you have a structure, cases may be induced. So, as for my own thinking, first of all, structure must be in place so as to prevent any recurrence of such a misconduct. So, even if one person may attempt to do that, but he or she will find it very difficult, that must be the structure. So, that was the core part of the recommendation by the Special Committee on Improving Governance. So, that is what I'm going to do. For many years, one person enjoyed the solo power in terms of the personnel affairs. So that is something that I will be very cautious. So after July, we will transit to that situation in terms of timeline. It's a very tough timeline. It's tough. And internally, as a result, some perplexion and some confusion may arise, but it is the reflection of the enormity of the case at this time. So I think it should be at least shown to the outside world that what we are doing. So timeline-wise, very difficult, but we will make efforts to ensure the realization of what we want to do. That is the work that we are carrying out day in and day out. So by all means, regarding the structure and the system, in and after July, we will have a thorough review of what we can do. So I will appreciate your continued support. Thank you very much for your insightful opinion.
Moving
on to next question, please. Attendance number 5308. So far, with regards to Mr. Gon's misconduct, many things were mentioned and reported. So seems like things are saturating. And I had something to say, but in respect of what I want to say, I would like to talk about the future rather than what happened in the past. As Saikawa-san said, it's about alliance, the state of the alliance. Alliance. The state of alliance. What I'm going to mention now is based on internal information, maybe. But don't look for a culprit who gave me this information. I mean, looking for a culprit made Nissan bad. That's how I understand it. So don't ask where I got this information from. There's one of the episodes related to alliance that I would like to share with you. e-Power technology, which is supporting Japanese operation of Nissan. E-Power is adopted in Nissan Note, and it has been 3 years since this was launched. And today, e-Power is very popular. That's what I heard, at least. But there are not many Nissan models which are popular. Besides this, you tend to be relying on e-Power technology. And how was this e-Power built? In the planning phase, I heard, well, naturally, it's long years back when it comes to planning process. And at that time, Mitsubishi Motors weren't there. So between Renault and Nissan, there was an alliance. And there was a discussion, I believe, because there was only Renault and Nissan within the alliance at the time. And as I heard that this discussion was long-lasting. Nissan's proposal was rejected by Renault many times. And at the end of the day, both of them conceded, or both parties compromised. I don't know what you compromised on. However, at the end of the day, you decided on developing e-Power technology. This implies something important about the alliance. Maybe it's trivial when it comes to big business administration, but this is an important episode. For example, if at the time, if Renault had more authority, for example, as the public says, if Renault has an intention to take more control over Nissan, Renault would have rejected all the things that Nissan wanted to do. So e-Power would have never come into a public. So what I mean is that when one of the partners have more control or power, this will happen. And Renault, which is a French company, do they really know about Japan market? Do they know Japan market? Do they truly understand what Nissan has in terms of technologies? This is my doubt. So, Renault, I don't think it's good for Renault to insist or assert many things. So this is a question for Mr. Sonar, in fact. But in the alliance going forward, of course, at the level of chairman or CEO, maybe it's not part of Mr. Sonar's position. Maybe it's about the discussion between the two companies' planning teams. Make sure one of the parties do not oppress the other party or reject other party's recommendation or idea. In 1 or 2 years, it took time to make decision on Note e-Power. Alliance sounds cool and stylish. You said it's consensus-based. It sounds good. In other words, it takes time to come to a decision, right? Please, you need to come up with a scheme that you can accelerate the decision-making. Top-level management will not take time, but if it will not spend time, but before it's escalated 2 or 3 years, there's a discussion at the working level, and this is a waste of time. So throughout the organization, from the top management or working level, please come up with a scheme that accelerates the decision-making process. Otherwise, Nissan's future is not so bright. So, Mr. Sonar, this is a question for you, but I can't. I understand because Mr. Saikawa said that I would like you to answer this question. Yes, thank you for your valuable opinion. What you pointed out is almost overlapping with the sense of problem that we have today, and we are trying to rectify it. Specifically, this kind of thing happened in the past. That's what you pointed out, and we feel the same sense of the same problem. And with the agreement with Mr. Sonar, we are making sure that we are accelerating the decision. We are accelerating the decision-making process. That's what we agreed with Mr. Sonar, and we have to make sure there's a win-lose situation. We shouldn't force other person to do what this person doesn't want to do. We have to come to a common agreement and look for a solution that each party agrees on. And the Note e-Power, on the birth of Note e-Power, there were a lot of discussions. Yes, you're right to say that. So we shouldn't spend 1 or 2 years on this matter, and this is important. Yes. So if we spend so much time, the value of the alliance or the benefit of the alliance for both parties will not be an advantage. So we have to be very careful about this. And the people on the field. People on the field are raising the same issue. And even today, convergence is in progress. So convergence was done for the sake of convergence, and this resulted in inefficiency in some cases. So we are addressing it as an immediate challenge. So we are going to solve one by one to eliminate such concerns eventually. And no to e-power, we were able to build something good. And this is one of the assets of Nissan that we would like to nurture going forward. And we want to spread this e-power wider. And electrification is one of the great weapons that Nissan has. And we would like to promote electrification. So I would like to ask for your continued support. Thank you for your valuable opinion. Yes. Nissan engineers, please make sure many engineers will not leave Nissan, and it will be a lose-lose for both alliance partners. Make sure it doesn't happen. Thank you for your opinion.
Well, time is passing very quickly. If you agree, we would like to limit the remaining questioners to 2 people. Would that be all right? 2 more questions. 2 more questions. Now we will continue with the questions. The voice of the audience is not audible. Well, there is a person asking a question. That's okay. The chairman says so. Sorry. Who's speaking? 5341. That's my attendance number. The person seated in front of me spoke. Yes, please, you go ahead. Yes, may I? All right. Item 3. The person seated in front of me asked a question. The previous questioner said that point 3, number 3, Gon's discharge and the successor is proposed as the discharging Mr. Gon. So what about the successor to Mr. Kelly? I think there was a question to that effect some time ago, and the chairman answered to that question that regarding Mr. Kelly, on another opportunity, you wanted to think about the successor. That was the response. Then maybe June SGM would be the place where the successor would be debated and reviewed. If that was the case, number 3, Mr. Snar's selection. What about this point 3 item? I say this because, to be blunt, Mr. Snar, I don't know this person very well. Mr. Gon's image is so bad. And again, a person from Renault, it's simple, I know. It's simplistic reaction, I know, but again, a person from Renault. If successor is to be elected in June, why not? Why do we have to select Mr. Snar this time? It's a simple question. The successor to Mr. Kelly can be decided in June. Then the successor to Mr. Gong could be selected in June as well. We can spend a good amount of time before selecting that person. So my question, how come you have this point 3 item? How come you have, it's a poor haste. What is the reason in trying to select the successor to Mr. Gon as the point 3 proposal? Related question. This is the extraordinary session of the General Shareholders meeting. The main parts would be number 1 and number 2. It means discharging 2 people. That's the main point of this general meeting. Why do we have to discharge them? They don't step down. So we forcefully fire them. If they step down, we don't need to discharge them from the position. So in the future, same thing may be repeated. I want to believe that same thing could not be repeated. I hope it doesn't. So if they don't step down, then newly selected person from the newly selected board members, as it says in point 1, at the board meeting, if it is confirmed that person can be discharged. If that is possible, then there should be a letter of resignation from the person in advance. And if the board decides to do so, that letter of resignation would come into effect. What about getting the letter of resignation from the person in advance? Mr. Sunar is a non-Japanese person, so it may look it's a discrimination. So if the treatment is equally applied to Japanese or non-Japanese board members, it would avoid any problems. So how about accepting the letter of resignation pending the resolution at the board meeting? That is my question. Thank you very much for your question. Now, regarding your second point, so this is the opinion, a very precious opinion. So in what way we can implement what you are trying to say, I don't know. But as your opinion, I'd like to take note of that as a very invaluable opinion. The first part of your comment, how come this time round, in addition to number 1, number 2, we are proposing the number 3 item? On this point, as you already know, naturally, in June SGM, once again, the confidence will be obtained by the shareholders. As a person representing Runo's side changed the personnel. It's a fact, a very clear fact that they changed the person. And to the extent possible, they wanted to change the person. That was a request from their side. Viewed from our side, in fact, discharging somebody. As a matter of fact, that was something that we wanted to do it. The remaining period of a director should be as short as possible. So there was one option of waiting until the end of June, but the Renault side system was cleanly in place. So if that was the case, then we will select the person. And then the new governance will be worked, and he will join in the new scheme of a new governance. So that was our judgment, and that was how it was resolved at the board meeting, and we noted in the notice of convocation. Discharging 2 people and selection of 1 person for the purpose of such a point, you took the trouble of coming to this extraordinary session of the meeting, but I hope you understand the intent behind the proposal of the 3 items. After all, this is a big punctuating moment, and I appreciate your cooperation very much. And regarding the second point, it's a very invaluable insight, and I would like to take note of that. That is all.
次の質問
Next question. If possible, we would like to make it a final question. Excuse me, just one thing. So far, for more than 2 hours, I was listening to you. And I find that you are taking things seriously and you are trying to address governance issue and make it better. The people who are assembled here are worried about the future of Nissan. That's their question. And my biggest concern is speed, sense of speed. You please make sure you do a soul searching, reflect on yourself, CEO and the board members. What is your sense of speed here? In terms of addressing things. That's my question. And in June, when we have the annual shareholders meeting, I think this is one of the milestones. And Mr. Saikawa, when do you think the new Nissan will be realized and when? And I'm sure you have a lot to discuss to make it happen. You can talk about your personal insight. And also, there's another thing. Over the 6 months, the sense of speed, because of these circumstances, what's your sense of speed? And there's another thing. What are you doing now? Nissan should produce profit. Producing profit means dividend. All the majority of the shareholders assembled here are concerned about dividend, and people here are receiving high dividends, and they are worried about the future of Nissan. Are you really able to generate profits? I think this is the common interest of the shareholders. I understood that you are doing soul searching or reflecting on yourself. I'm not trying to deny what you are trying to do. I understand your faith. But what we want to know really is that how is Nissan going to make for the future? This is not visible today. You are considering now. There are a lot of issues. I know that, but still, milestones. Please show the milestones of the new Nissan. And my major concern, I belong to the IT industry. Sense of speed. In Japan, Mr. Son, Google, these players are involved. And your sense of speed, automakers are slow. And Toyota partner with SoftBank. And Toyota partner with SoftBank. So, my question is about the sense of speed. Thank you for your questions.
そうですね、スピード感
Sense of speed. You're totally right. As you said, nothing is waiting for us, even for a single day. And we have to work in this circumstance. It's a challenging environment, and we know this. And our position is as follows. We try to partner with non-auto industry as much as possible. In doing so, sense of speed. That was your question. Sense of speed. Yes, it's really tough indeed. Over the past several months, not 6 months, but over the few months. In many aspects, our progress, speed of progress has been a bit weak. I have to admit this. But as I said, after today, we need to expedite our efforts. And that's what we want to do. And building new corporate governance is important. But even if you ensure a corporate governance, if the company does not perform well, we will go nowhere. So we need to promote the operation of Nissan. And you're right. You're totally right on this point. In determining the next steps, Special Committee on Improving Governance made a recommendation, and we were waiting for this recommendation. And now we received the recommendation. We are making efforts in full swing. But in terms of business execution, honestly speaking, we lost time. So we need to speed up and catch up. And as you said, Nissan's future is the major concern of shareholders, and we totally recognize this. In fiscal year 2019, in terms of corporate governance and business operation, we would like to make a step forward. And in 2021, in the latter half of the ongoing midterm plan, we would like to recover Nissan or get out of the situation where we belong to today. I think this is the challenge that I'm addressing today. Speed, sense of speed. Because of the event, our speed fell. We slowed down. I have to admit this. So now is the time to catch up quickly. I would like to ask for your continued support. Thank you.
はい、それでは
Yes. Now then, may I speak? Sorry. First of all, the questions should be in order. 5726 attendance number. About 20 years ago, Nissan was near death. And 2 trillion yen interest-bearing debt. And it was near collapsing. And there came Mr. Carlos Ghosn of Renault. So with Alliance, Nissan revived. And V-shaped recovery happened. And this time round, what we found was that a person of Mr. Carlos Ghosn was outrageous evil. And in order to do away with the specter like Mr. Ghosn, Alliance was used again. Other party was used. Public prosecutor's office was asked to do away with this specter monster. And management people have spoken today. You have spoken according to what you say. Carlos Ghosn's misconduct was not found. And when he was arrested, the first time you found it out. Is it possible? As a management, you are disqualified not being able to detect it. I'm sure you knew it. But you were not courageous enough to do something about it. That is my opinion. So you have to take responsibility. Management is always like that. Management should be prepared to be fired, to be done away with. That is the responsible position of the management. You have to be prepared to be sacked. So I want to ask you a firm determination on this matter. Last point, number 1 item, second item, they will be passed and approved. In voting on those items, and Mr. Ghosn and Mr. Kelly, to these 2 people, retirement allowance or the contribution allowance, is such a money going to be paid? I want to confirm, is anything to be paid to these 2 people? Thank you. Thank you very much. So you talked about what happened with Nissan along 20 years path. And what you said is something that I fully understand. And it is the determination and preparedness with which I have to act as management. As the previous person asked, what is important is to rescue Nissan from a big shaking and then put it on a stable path. That is the priority. And then having done so, I would like to take responsibility fully. So I need your support and guidance in this regard. And the second point, the possible... What was the second point? The retirement payment. So possibility of payment. Naturally, we don't want to make any payment. I don't want to do it. I don't want to pay. But in what way, with what legal ground are we going to pursue? So that is something that we have to work on going forward. But my feeling is as I described. I hope you understand my feeling. That is all that I can say. So that is what I intend to do. I hope you understand my true feeling. Thank you very much for your good question and good opinion. Thank you very much.
それではですね、十分
As a full discussion on the subject matters of this meeting has been carried out, we would like to close the question and we'd like to proceed to take a vote on the proposed items. Thank you very much. So we will go to the voting. Voting. Now I'd like to proceed to take a vote on the proposed items. The vote will be based upon your applause and shareholders voting, which occurred prior to the meeting by voting forms and the internet, as well as those who voted by power of attorney. We would like to take a vote on the first item, which is discharge of Director Carlos Ghosn. I'd like you to express your affirmative votes by applause. Thank you. I declare the item approved as proposed by a majority of shareholders. Next, we would like to take a vote on the second item, which is discharge of Director Greg Kelly. I'd like you to express your affirmative votes by applause. Thank you. I declare the item approved as proposed by a majority of shareholders. Next, we would like to take a vote on the third item, which is election of Mr. Jean-Dominique Senard as director on the condition that item 1 is approved. I'd like you to express your affirmative vote by applause. Thank you. I declare the item approved as proposed by a majority of shareholders. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have concluded all of the items set out for today's general meeting. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to all of the shareholders for your serious deliberation and your valuable time. I thank you very much. At this time, I hereby declare the closing of this extraordinary general meeting of shareholders of Nissan Motor Company Limited. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take a few moments to introduce of the newly appointed director, Mr. Senard. Please come onto the stage. Mr. Senard, please come onto the stage.
Nissan no Kabunushi.
Shareholders of Nissan Motor, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Nihongo wa
I hardly speak Japanese. From now, I would like to switch over to English, if I may.
I would like to thank you for your confidence. I would like to tell you how grateful I am to have been elected director of Nissan. I feel very much honored. From now on, with the help of my colleague directors, I will dedicate my energy to enhance the future of Nissan company. Economy performance is essential for the future, but also the well-being of the people of Nissan who work hard with pride to ensure their future. Economic performance and well-being of the people of Nissan will be for me of the highest importance. I will constantly suggest the best possible evolutions in the framework of the alliance, which, as you know, has started a fresh new era. We want to secure a bright future for Nissan. Once again, thank you very much for your confidence. Minasama.
Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you. So this meeting will come to an end. But lastly, as Mr. Snar said, I would like to make one supplementary comment. Nissan will, as a company, want to become is a company with a full potential that can do the global business. Starting from this meeting, I will do my best with the greatest sincerity to achieve that. Nissan is a representative Japanese company, and at the same time, it's a global, unique company. So as such, I want to nurture this company. Ladies and gentlemen of the shareholders, thank you very much today.